Welcome in another episode of Part Post Addiction Recovery and Transitioning. I'm your host, Ms. K. Good to see everybody alive and around, above ground. Always a pleasure. So today's topic, we're talking about how does toxic relationships affect addiction? How does it have an impact? So let's just say you've been in a toxic relationship. Okay, we all have had them. They can range anywhere from like verbal abuse or mental abuse or, constant arguing to physical abuse and living in fear and those type of things. So, I realize how, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a spousal relationship. It could be friendships. It can be any kind of relationship that you could think of. Your boss, your significant other. It's just any relationship. How does that toxicity affect you in your everyday life? So I can use myself as an example, obviously. I've worked in toxic environments that were extremely high level, high stress. And I didn't think I stressed out. I thought I handled myself really well, as a matter of fact. But what I didn't realize was how slowly but surely I would cope by drinking. And it started out as, I could use a drink to unwind, or I could use a drink to come down from that, little bit of stress I dealt with today. But then it became a pattern where I was doing it all the time to like cope, point blank period. If I got mad with somebody or I got mad with a customer, I'm like, oh man, when I get off, I can't wait for a drink. I'm having a nice glass of wine. I'm going to have this. It became a reward for the kind of day that I had. And that, I didn't realize it at the time, but that obviously was building into something more serious. Bear with me, guys. I apologize. I'm dealing with the worst allergies ever, but it's a part of life, and I'm gonna take it on the chin. So I do sound a little stuffy, but it's just my allergies. So bear with me. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Toxicity it is a no-go for me. In my life, I can't even tolerate a little bit of it. You could be a negative Nancy or a pitiful Paul, but when you around me and you're just constantly like, oh, this happened to me, and I hate this, and this is just junk, and I'm sorry, I can't be around that. I check out. I'm just like, no, I can't, and I'm going to tell you why. I didn't realize it at first, but you can easily take on other people's toxicity just by being in that environment and listening to people who are unhappy. That's okay. That's totally fine to let people vent. That's totally fine to be that shoulder for someone to cry on. But there's a fine line for me. There's a fine line of being there for someone and being their sounding board and taking in, their hurt, their pain, and trying to walk them through and guide them through a solution or helping them find a solution. There's a difference between that. There's a fine line. But like I stated, if it's someone who is just constantly negative and every day that I see them, you know how it is. It's like, good morning, how are you? Yeah, my dog threw up on the carpet this morning, and my cat peed in my mom's favorite chair. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Like that, I'm sorry. Pets, they have a mind of their own. Then day 2 is, hey, how you doing? Oh, well, my car's got a flat tire, and I'm just sick of this dead end job, and the managers don't do it. Hold on, baby. Hold on. There's a pattern here. And I give you a while to build up that resistance. I tend to be one of those people that I'm very understanding. I get it. And everybody doesn't come from the same mental capacity or the same walk of life. So we all have different ways that we respond to things. But when it's just, it's every day, I can't do it. that's when I have to be like, sweetheart, with all due respect, your negativity is bothering my atmosphere. It's not conducive to who I am as an individual. And I love listening to you. I love to hear your opinion and what what you have to say about topics. But that negative, why me? I must be the only person going through this. There's only so much that I could take. And I don't just cut them off and not talk to them anymore. I guide them and I say, hey, let's try to look at things from a different perspective. And I tell them all the time, when I felt like I was going through things that only I had to be going through, I would go read or Google or watch a YouTube video and see somebody who went through something way worse than what I did and way more tragic. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Yeah, having a flat tire ain't that bad. Yeah, I might have gone through 2 or 3 obstacles in a matter of one day, but it's just 24 hours. It's just one day. I can start all over again tomorrow. It's not over. It's not the end of the world or the end of my life. I can start over tomorrow. So I'm one of those people that I try to guide people. I don't just give up on them because that's just not in my spirit. But it's hard for me to tolerate a negative person and not tell them. I've had several people in my life that I was just like, hey, you're kind of negative and you've been negative for 2 months and I've been listening to you for 2 months. I can't do this. I need you to turn that little post around, like, stop. Stop, because you're actually killing yourself by believing the words that are coming out of your mouth. You're killing yourself slowly on the inside. You're tearing yourself apart. You don't feel it. But any type of stress that you embody, your organs are taking that on. And all your organs. Your skin is an organ. So if you ever notice, when you stressed out, some people say they break out. That's because all of your organs take in all of the stress that you're dealing with. So it's really important that you deflect it and find some other way to get through that. Don't absorb it. That's the last thing you want to do is absorb stress. Deflect it. Find some other way, not a harmful way. Find something that you enjoy doing that'll, help deflect that. But it's really important that you don't take on someone else's toxicity. That can lead you down a dangerous path. And especially when it's a situation where it's your spouse. Let's say you're in a relationship and, that negativity could really bother you to the point where you start abusing a substance or you start consuming more alcohol. And that's a good scapegoat. I'm not going to lie to you. That was one of my scapegoats is, hey, you know what? I'm going to have me a drink. I'm going to smoke me a little bit of this weed. And I'm not going to let them get to me. I'm just not going to let them get to me. And anybody who smokes weed, we all know that's the I don't care drug. You just be like, whatever. I'm chilling. I just want to eat and relax. Like, it's the whatever drug. It's one of those things where you could care less. You ain't trying to fight nobody or do something stupid. You sit down somewhere. You just don't care about what things are said or done or, hey, bills that's coming up. It doesn't bother you. So it's really one of those things where you just got to be careful with toxicity and relationships that are toxic, because the more you are in that relationship, the more likely you are to create a pattern of substance abuse. So I know you might be asking, all right, if that's the case, how do I know that I'm in a toxic relationship? Great question. If you are in a relationship, friendship, mother-daughter, father-daughter, father-son, whatever, auntie, uncle, whoever it is, whatever relationship it is, if they make you feel less than who you are, then that's a toxic relationship. If they're taking time to say that your opinion doesn't matter, or they always cut you off, they always demean you, that your thoughts, they don't have weight, they don't mean anything, or you don't know what's going on with this world, you're just young, you just this. Yeah, youth might play a role in something, but it doesn't mean you don't know anything. So if you never, ever have any good things to come out of your mouth, according to that person, then that's definitely a toxic relationship. It's an emotional toxic relationship, like, and mentally toxic. Those type of things really can affect you as an individual. It can make you question your self-esteem. And there's one thing that I learned going sober was not to question my self-esteem based off of somebody else's opinion. I said the word is self-esteem. It's what I think of myself. So yes, the world is entitled to their opinions. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. It doesn't mean it's factual. It doesn't mean it's accurate. It's just your opinion. And I have learned to be able to absorb and listen to other people's opinions, but not allow it to dictate my thought of myself. It is up to me to correct myself. It is up to me to take a look at myself and say, hey, that's not right. You know right from wrong. Don't do that. Don't do this. Like, that's up to me. Now, granted, there's some exceptions to the rule. Obviously, if you've got 5 people telling you the same thing about yourself, you may need to take a look at yourself in the mirror and see, hey, let me step outside of myself. Let me look through their glasses and see, is this actually true? Maybe this is true. Maybe I do fly off the handle over this, or maybe I am very smart mouth and I play too much, or I don't know how to turn it off, those type of things, or I don't take things seriously. Maybe this is the case because I keep hearing this from people at my job. I keep hearing this from people at home. Like, that's a different situation where you do need to take a step back and look. But for the most part, like, don't let someone dictate your self-esteem. Self-esteem. You dictate that. You look yourself in the mirror every single day. We all know right from wrong. We all know right from wrong. With the exception of someone who is not mentally capable of understanding right from wrong. The rest of us do. We know right from wrong. So if you take it upon yourself to do the wrong thing, then that's where you need to do some reflecting and say to yourself, hey, you know what? I was in the wrong. There's no other way to put it. I was in the wrong for that. But letting someone tell you who you are as a person, and one thing about me, I always look at the source. And I know if you've watched any of my other podcast episodes, I tell you, look at the source. If that person is off their rocker themselves, no, thank you. Thank you for, giving me your opinion, but I respectfully disagree. I always look at the source. And that's important in toxic relationships. Look at your source. If your source is abusing a substance, more than likely they're not thinking with a level head, just like you. I will say that I've been blessed that my spouse has never used substances. Never. But I think back about if he used substances when I used substances, what kind of relationship would we have? Because some of the worst fights is when people are under the influence. Both parties are under the influence. I'm talking about knock down, drag down, slapping, spitting, hitting, going to jail. It's and then when you sober up, you like, man, we really went at it. Would we have gone at it like that had we been sober? And so I'm grateful for the fact that my spouse didn't partake in any type of substance, because we already had a rough patch. I couldn't imagine what it would be like if both of us, drank, or if both of us smoked weed. It's just, we probably would have had some very volatile disagreements. So I'm grateful for that. But if your partner, whoever it may be, male, female, if you both are under the influence and you all see a pattern that you're beefing and you start arguing, or you argue about minute, minimal, trivial things because you're under the influence, so maybe you all need to take a look at that. Like, don't be under the influence together. Like, don't try another option. Like, let's try having date night sober this time. But it's a big thing substances do play a huge role in toxic relationships. If the person is mentally unstable, where, let's say they battled depression, or, I don't want to say depression, because that's something that's very common. That doesn't mean you're mentally unstable. It just means that you battle depression. But let's say that, unfortunately you deal with you're bipolar or schizophrenia or something like that runs in your family. That's difficult. I've never been that way, but I can't imagine how it feels to be inside the mind of someone that's dealing with that. That's got to be extremely difficult. So as a spouse to someone who's dealing with that, you don't know what to expect. And so it's really important that you have yourself grounded. And I mean grounded, so that you can take on that responsibility. There's moms whose children battle that, and they take on the responsibility of, trying to help them and guide them through it. And I my heart goes out to you, because that's tough. I can only imagine how tough that is. Every mom, for the most part, wants what's best for their child, and to watch that type of situation can be taxing. But anyway, just make sure that if you're going to have a relationship with somebody, whatever kind of relationship it might be, that they're not toxic. They're not toxic to you. So a few ideas about what toxicity looks like. They're putting you down. They're aggressive towards you. Your opinion doesn't matter. You only cause problems. You never have solutions. And that's a big one to me. If it's like, oh, you always do this, I just be like, oh, that's not true. There's got to be something positive in me. Like, how can you say I always do this? Like, that's not true. If nothing you do is ever good enough, again, that's a red flag that, there's definitely something there. If you're at work, let's say it's your boss, and they're always putting you down, your ideas, they don't even give them a shot. They just like, oh yeah, whatever. But yet your coworker can come up and be like, hey, have the same idea, similar idea. And they're like, that's a great idea, Susie. That's a great idea. That's a toxic relationship. And you don't deserve that. You don't deserve that, because the more you put up with that, the more likely you are to turn to a substance, or turn to violence, or turn to darker thoughts. Toxicity is exactly that. Toxic. Extremely toxic, extremely dangerous. Once it penetrates you, it can cause your whole character to switch up. It can cause your perception of life to be devalued. And that's the last thing you want, because that opens the door for a whole nother stretch of things that can affect you. So it's really important that you just don't let toxicity get in. Close that door. Wipe it out. When you see it, wipe it out. Stop it in its tracks. If you notice that pattern, and sometimes it takes us a while to notice a pattern, I have trained myself to stand back, shut my mouth, and look, watch, listen. Don't talk. Look, watch, listen. If you start to see this person does the same thing, responds in the same fashion, and there's no pat on the back ever, that's a toxic relationship. If they're cursing you out and saying negative things about your physical appearance, oh, you're ugly, you always smell, you're a piece of trash, you're never going to be anything. Okay, toxic. Let's not do this anymore. Clearly, I'm never going to live up to your standards. Clearly, I'm never going to be what you want me to be. So let's go our separate ways. I don't care if it's a job. I don't care if it's your mother. I don't care if it's your father. I don't care if it's your child. Do not let someone treat you that way. Again, the more you put up with, it allows that opportunity for negativity to seep in and to destroy you. It's very destructive. It's very destructive. I know for a fact that me burying toxic feelings, things that were said about me, things that were done to me, because sometimes toxicity can be a physical thing. And I'm not talking about just like punching you or your spouse doing things like that, but it could also be sexual abuse. Those type of things can be toxic. But I know for a fact that the toxicity that I dealt with shifted me. It definitely shifted me. I didn't think it did. I thought I did a great job of burying it and moving on from the past. But as I got older and older, that bad boy unburied itself. It started to creep up. It started to creep up. And it was also things that I wasn't willing to speak about, things that I'm being candid about in this podcast. It was things I wasn't willing to speak about. I was just like, nah, I ain't talking about that. Like that's just something I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want anybody to know that happened to me. And it ate me up inside. It destroyed me. I'm not going to say that it destroyed me to the point where there was no coming back, because unfortunately that's an option as well. But it definitely took its toll on me. It definitely made me second guess myself, my self-worth, who I was as an individual, my character. Was my mom correct in the way she raised me? I started criticizing. Hey, what was she thinking? She could have did something different. I started to criticize friends. Oh, they are acting like they're too good for me. I started to criticize my peers at work. And that's all because a little smidge of toxicity showed up. And you left the door crack. Close the door. Don't let it in. Stop it in its tracks. Let people know this is what I'm willing to put up with. One thing I've learned as well, getting older, that's the beauty of getting older, is you're supposed to get wiser. The one thing I've learned, one of the many things that I've learned, is people will only do to you what you allow them to. And you don't have to curse them out. You don't have to raise your voice. Let me tell you what I'm good at. I will stare through you. If you give me any type of disrespect, I'm just like, I don't have to say a word, but I'll let you know with my eyes, you better not ever do that again. I deserve better than that. And that's what I'm telling you today. You don't have to physically harm anybody. You don't have to threaten them. You don't have to lay hands on them. All you have to do is look at them and let them know that there's something I won't tolerate. Sometimes you got to speak and say, hey, do me a favor. With all due respect, I will not tolerate that. Please don't do that to me. And walk away. You don't have to engage in that. You don't have to continue fighting the situation. Walk away. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. But more importantly, maintain this. Maintain your mental stability. It's not easy to do. I tell you all the time, take it day by day. Take it day by day. Do that. Because once you build that pattern of actually logically thinking through your situations, it becomes a habit. And it's like second nature. It's like riding a bike, to the point where it's easy. It's not something you even got to think about anymore. You can automatically do it. That's one thing that I love about learning is once you apply it and you consistently apply it, it's second nature. You don't have to worry about thinking it through. And it gets easier and easier to do. It's just like, what'd you say? Oh, it's okay. Cool. That shocks people when you don't feed into that energy. Don't feed into a toxic energy. Don't feed into a toxic environment. You walk away, step away, do what you need to do, but don't feed into it. Just let them know, hey, You right, I'm wrong. But what we're not going to do is continue this conversation. The last thing you want to do is allow it to penetrate you and then start relying on a substance to make you feel better, because that's what I did. It's not going to make you feel better. It justifies the moment, but not in longevity. No, you're suffering later on. When you get sober, when you wake up the next day, guess what? That problem is still there. So it's critical that you handle it in the moment so you can move on with your life and move forward. Thank you all so much for listening to me. Again, this is part post-addiction recovery and transitioning. It's the way to get through life, navigate after sobriety. Be blessed.